3, 2, 1, recording. Welcome to the Davidthedogtrainer podcast, episode 48. Here we are. So Josh and I have literally spent the last hour and 15 minutes talking about music and getting all hyped up and stuff.
Yeah.
So I figured now's best as time than ever. This was going to be the next thing I was going to tell you.
Oh, gosh.
So Miracle Canine Training.
We're starting a band.
No.
Oh,
that would
okay.
be, that maybe might come next, though. The Miracle Canine Band. No, we created a Spotify page.
Oh.
Officially. And we're going to start making playlists for all you guys to listen to.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. I
Okay.
already made a Christmas playlist for everybody. It's almost 2 hours long. These are all of my favorite Christmas songs. I spent way too much of my time making this, honestly.
Yeah.
Way too much of my time making this. It was completely unnecessary, but it's called A Jolly Christmas from Miracle Canine. You could search for it now. You could find it. Again, it's an hour and 47 minutes of all of my favorite Christmas songs from the likes of, excuse me, from the likes of Frank Sinatra, Mariah Carey, Jimmy Buffett, who has one of the best Christmas albums out there, the Vince Guaraldi Trio, who creates the wonderful music of the Peanuts soundtrack. I think I got an August Burns Red song on there because they did their Christmas albums.
Yeah, that's true.
Lawrence Welk, Ed Sullivan, The Temptations, Michael Bublé, how could you forget about him?
Ooh,
Elvis
Bublé. Presley.
I did have to put the Alvin and the Chipmunks song on there because everybody kind of likes that one. When it comes on, it puts you in a good mood. I think I put one Trans-Siberian Orchestra song, Andy Williams. There's a lot of hits.
Yeah.
So I'm recommending you guys go check it out now. I'm recommending you guys follow the Miracle Canine Training page on Spotify because I plan on making lots and lots of playlists of my favorite things to listen to while I train dogs. Because here's the thing, Josh.
Okay. Yes. Definitely.
Music has always been like the pinnacle point of my life. You know, it's been such an important part of me.
Yeah.
You know,
I feel
that
it.
everything that I do, I create like an internal soundtrack to what I'm doing.
Oh, yeah?
You know what I mean? Like when I'm doing certain things, I have music picked out in my head of what would fit perfectly with that thing that I'm doing.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm going to start making playlists like that.
There you go.
It'd be great.
DJ K9.
DJ K. I kind of like that. DJ K9 here to spin the beats.
Yeah. Speaking of the Peanuts, though, did you see that this is the first year that they didn't have the Peanuts playing on Thanksgiving because of licensing?
Really? No, I did not
Yeah.
see that. We watched it, though, because I have them all on Blu-ray.
Yeah. They put it on Paramount, because I think Paramount owns them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's
I saw
on
something.
There.
They're putting the Christmas one up, though.
Yeah.
I think they're playing the Christmas one this year.
Maybe. Well, I knew. Well, it's because they put it on the Paramount app, like their little streaming app or whatever.
I understand.
Yeah. Everyone was like, her grandma was like super bummed. She's
People
like,
weren't thrilled.
we can't watch the Peanuts.
I mean, listen,
special.
everybody loves watching Peanuts Thanksgiving. I'll tell you, though, Peanuts Thanksgiving, it's funny, we put it on. I didn't realize how much of a Debbie Downer that one was.
It's sad.
It's been about 2 years since I watched it. It's like everybody hates him. He doesn't have anywhere to go for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Nobody has anywhere to go for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
It is kind of a sad one.
Yeah. I mean,
Got a heartfelt end, but like that, they are all little pull at the strings a little bit. It's
yeah.
like, God, like these kids got it rough.
dude. There's a reason that Charlie Brown's song is just boom boom boom.
Yeah.
Boom boom. Like it's the saddest song ever. You're
That's
like,
the Christmas song, actually.
yeah. But
Christmas time.
I know.
Is here.
But it's Charlie Brown's sad song now. he took it and ran with it.
I believe that song is on my playlist, by the way.
Oh, is it?
I'm pretty sure that one is on there.
Did you ever watch Arrested Development?
No, never.
Okay.
I think Kate asked me that the other day
Yeah.
for something.
Well, every time like one of them are really sad, they always do the Charlie Brown walkaway, and they always play the do 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 do. And it's pretty funny. That's probably the funniest part of that fucking show. But,
Yeah. All right. What's new? What else is new?
Oh, since the day.
Yeah, we
since
are
I-
only 2 days later. We filmed our last podcast episode on Wednesday. Today's Friday.
Yeah, because we are both going on vacation.
We'll be out of town.
Oh.
Josh will be in the floor land.
Yeah, and you'll be.
Florida.
Yeah, I'm in the the Walmart brand Hawaii.
Is that what that is?
That's what they say. Florida is the wannabe Hawaii when you don't have enough money to go there.
You go to Florida.
Yeah, but
I like it.
Yeah, you're going on the honeymoon to Hawaii.
Going to Hawaii.
That's gonna
Gonna
be
check
fun.
some stuff out. Hawaii time for Christmas.
Yeah.
Waikiki La, I believe is what it's called, is on
Yeah.
this playlist as well. The Hawaiian Christmas song.
Yes.
Had to put it on there. It's a great one. Also, Mela Kalikimaka. Mela Kalikimaka. You know that one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one. I got the Jimmy Buffett cover of that one. It's a good one. It's kind of islandy.
Yeah.
Islandy.
An island boy.
Yeah, that's it. I'm an island boy.
Oh God. But yeah, the only thing that happened was I went to Cloak and Dagger and took pictures of their food on Thursday. So that was
Dope.
fun. It's a good time.
Krampus.
Krampus.
Take pictures of the Krampus.
Krampus,
I'll tell you, I don't fully understand what Krampus is.
It's just like a
I feel like in the last couple of years, it's really blown up. People like to talk about Krampus a lot.
you could get pictures with Krampus.
It's just
I don't know
like
if you saw
evil
that.
Santa, and then all this, something like that. Does he eat children?
It's just
Isn't that actually what? Doesn't he actually eat children? Isn't that it?
something like
What's
that.
the history of Krampus? We need to know.
I think it's like a pagan thing, just like Santa is. Just a little less marketable.
Krampus is. Oh wait, hang on. Oh, here it's from Britannica.
Oh, Britannica. Okay.
Krampus in Central European popular legend, a half goat, half demon monster that punishes misbehaving children at Christmas time. He is the devilish companion of St. Nicholas. Krampus is believed to have originated in Germany, and his name derives from the German word Krampen, which means claw. Krampus was thought to have been part of pagan rituals for the winter solstice. According to legend, he is the son of Hel, a Norse god of the underworld. With the spread of Christianity, Krampus became associated with Christmas, despite efforts by the Catholic Church to ban him. The creature and St. Nicholas are said to arrive on the evening of December 5th. While St. Nicholas rewards nice children by leaving presents, Krampus beats those who are naughty with branches and sticks. In some cases, he is said to eat them or take them to hell.
I'll tell you.
On December 6th, St. Nicholas Day, children awaken to find their gifts or nurse their injuries.
Oh, Lord.
All right.
Well,
That's what I thought. I thought he ate children.
so I'm just saying. I think kids would be they'd be much more behaved if the Krampus story was.
The Krampus came around.
Yeah, Krampus is
Gave him a
gonna
little
whoop your
1-2.
butt
Yeah,
or
yeah.
eat you,
That's right. You better listen or else Krampus is going to come by. Teach you.
take you to hell. Jeez,
Brutal, man.
Why is my flashlight on? What is it? Dude, my phone's going all wonky.
Yeah. Cool. All right.
Yeah,
Not a whole lot new with me. I sent Josh a text message last night,
yeah,
like 1:30 in the morning.
yeah.
All right, guys.
Here it goes.
It's not. See, at this point, I've stewed on it for enough where I'm not as emotionally charged about it. But last night I was feeling pretty heated, right?
Yeah.
About this fucking double down situation. we gotta listen. I'm talking to the world right now.
right into the
talking
camera.
to the world. We gotta cool it with this double down.
Okay, cool it.
We gotta cool it a little bit with this double down. All right, so we'll explain. I've talked about this on the podcast before. I just want to talk about it again because I stumbled across some trainers yesterday who are double down enthusiasts, if you will, you know? And I made a post. I think said name a dumber dog training trend than the double down. I'll wait or something like that. Like, it's stupid, right? Okay, so here's what the double down is, right?
Yeah, refresh.
The double down is a newer, I would say in the last year, a newer trend that has been created by a handful of trainers, right? Handful of, I would say, well-influenceable or with the ability, influential,
Yes.
or without influential trainers. And basically the concept is you teach your dog to not only lay down, but to glue their chin down on the ground, right? So not only must they lay down, their head must be flat against the ground as well, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about their reasoning for wanting to do this, right? And then we're also going to go into the methods in which they teach this typically, right?
Okay.
So the idea is that this whole concept that where the body goes, the mind follows. We talked about this before with the idea of like laying on a bed, right?
Yeah.
You know, so the idea is if we put this dog or we force this dog to physically be in this position of rest, right? That's going to force their mind into a position of rest, right? I hate these things blowing up over here. The volume's too loud. Okay, so it's going to force their mind into this position of rest, right?
Yeah.
We know this is not realistic, right? We know this is not real life with things because that's not how things work, right?
Yeah.
We use obedience commands not to force the dog into a position of rest, but we teach them obedience commands in order to keep them in a controlled position so that we can expose them to triggers that are creating stimulation, right? When I put my dog in a downstay around something that's either stressing them out or around something that is really, really exciting to them that they want to go and explore, my expectation is not that you have to be in a rested state of mind right now. That's unrealistic, right? You're not going to create a rested state of mind just by having them around that thing, right? Because the reason why they're stimulated or the reason why they're concerned in the first place is because of their lack of impulse control around that thing, right? They've never been put in a position where they have to focus in around that trigger, and they've typically developed this conditioned association of when I'm around this thing, I get really amped up. When I'm around this thing, I get really amped up. When I'm around this thing, I get really scared, et cetera, because of their ability to go and interact with it and explore with it and see what it creates, whether something's stimulating or whether something's scary, right? So my downstay in that situation has nothing to do with making them rest. It just has to do with the first step of starting to shift that mentality and get them into a position where they're needing to at least engage half of their brain on something else, right? So I could start to decondition that trigger a little bit, right? And we could take any number of examples of situations people would say use the double down, and we could break down why it would not be something that would be super productive to do, right? Let's use the most common example, right? Dog reactivity, right? There's a lot of situations where trainers will take a dog, right? And they'll put the dog in a situation where there's dogs all around, and they'll put them into a down, and the dog will still obviously be stimulated, right? The dog will still be fairly amped up, right? Yeah. Because they have this association of dogs being either really exciting or really scary, right? Now, as we start to practice some impulse control with our dog around this thing, around dogs in this case, what will happen is over time, they will organically realize, I can't get up to go check this thing out. I can't get up to go bark at this dog. I can't get up to go do this. And as they start understanding there are consequences and boundaries to their actions with those things, over time, they will start to chill out on their own, right? If you force them into a position of then further downing, right, and further putting their chin on the ground, if anything, all you're doing is creating more stress around that trigger because it's creating an unrealistic expectation for them, right? Which gets into then how do they go about training a lot of these different things, right? They go about training these things by basically putting the dog into a down, and then once they're in the down, telling them down and correcting them repeatedly until they put their chin down on the ground. So this is dumb because of a couple of things, right? This is dumb because... And I'm like gathering my thoughts as I'm saying this too. So like apologize for my word vomit here, right? So the reason why this is so dumb is because if you've spent all this time teaching your down, then you're going to put your dog into a down and then you're going to correct them a bunch of times while they're in the down. The dog is going to assume one of two things, right? The dog is going to either assume that the down they're doing is incorrect, and then they're going to start making mistakes and you're going to mess up your down, right?
Exactly.
The second thing is they're trying to keep themselves under control around this trigger, but they're getting all of this stress and correction in regards to being around that trigger, which is going to make their responses worse to those things. Or the third option is the dog is going to truly, and I don't throw this term around a lot, but the dog is truly going to hit a point of what we would refer to as like learned helplessness, right? Which is what a lot of positive only trainers will say we're doing when we're using e-collars in the first place, which I typically would argue against. But when your dog does finally put their chin on the ground, they've truly hit a point of learned helplessness at that point, right? They've hit a point where they're like, I literally have no clue what to do, so I'm just going to put myself in the most submissive position that I can because I'm basically too scared to do anything else, right? Which is where you get into the ethics of teaching this. This is why I have the biggest problem with this, right? So I've got what I would consider to be a close friend and good client that has used our services before and stuff like that, who has used the double down in the past with her dog, right? And she's seen some success in the situation that she's used it with her dog, right? So she argues with me a lot every time I make posts about this, which I understand, right? This is fine, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing against her. I completely understand her points with a lot of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, gotcha.
Right? My concern with it is that the potential upside to using it, which is, and let's explain the upside here. The success she's seen with it is she has a dog that's very scared of like thunderstorms, right? And he'll get very anxious, very pacey, very panicky and stuff.
Yeah.
And she basically said, I use the double down around the thunderstorms and it helps him chill out faster, right? I'm not denying that that's the case, right? There's a very real possibility that it did. But the question that I ask is, was it the double down that fixed that problem, or was it just a well-timed correction for a very clear state of mind that the dog was in that stopped it, right? So I'm arguing that you probably could have accomplished the same thing without doing the double down, and it would have been more fair, and more clear to the dog, and probably more sustainable in the long run and require less management.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of my idea with it. Now, the potential downside to doing the double down is now you have a really fucking shitty down command because the dog is just in a state of like complete fucking like fear while they're in it the entire time.
Yeah.
Right. You have all these new trainers that are adopting it as this mentality of every impulse control ever is a result of the dog not being calm enough. And we need to make them more calm, which again creates this expectation that I'm telling you, if you tried to get Vinny to do a fucking double down, you're probably going to get fucking bit doing it. Because it's like, he's not going to do it.
Yeah.
He's like, that's not the dog he is. He's never going to be the dog that is the, like, he goes everywhere and just puts his chin on the ground and he's so calm and so chill and this and that, right? So you're creating this false expectation of all of these different dogs that they all should be at this, like, level 0.5 of adrenalized at all times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's so unrealistic. And as people are trying to do it, you're messing with your training, right? There's no fair way to teach this. You know what I mean? Like there's literally like the only way you teach it is by the dog hitting a point where they're just like, I don't know what else to do. I'm just going to do the most submissive thing that I could possibly do and just lay down. That would be no different than saying, I mean, it's literally like the same thing. And I've seen plenty of trainers do this as well. That's like basically saying we're going to teach our down command by repeatedly correcting our dog until they lay down, right? I had a shadow student in town recently, right? And she told me that one of the trainers that she was there was a local trainer that one of her trainers went and shadowed with for a couple of days. And this trainer's method of teaching the down was sticking the dog in a crate and, excuse me, get myself worked up. I gotta breathe for a minute. The method of teaching was sticking the dog in a crate and correcting the dog over and over and over again until they laid down. Right?
What?
Again, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You're putting the dog in a down and you're correcting the dog over and over again until they put their chin down. Why is the dog doing the behavior in those cases, right? The dog is downing in the crate at that moment because they're submitting. They're fully submitting to you. They're like, okay, I don't know what to do, but I'm going to do the most submissive thing that I can, which is lay down because I don't want to be corrected anymore, right?
Yeah.
That's, even though it may, over time, you could still accomplish having a down command doing it that way. It's the most unfair way possible that you could teach it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's terrible.
Yes. And yes, of course, because you're putting the dog into like the most submissive state possible doing it that way. Of course, they're going to seem calmer around those triggers around them. Right? Because yes, they're essentially more scared of the corrections than they are about the things going on around them at that point. Right? But again, what I'm getting at is that's not doing anything to stop their anxiety in association with those triggers.
Yeah.
Right? We did a live training session yesterday. So we're another cool thing to announce real quick here. We're starting to do weekly Instagram live training sessions, right? So yesterday we did an hour where I worked with 2 different dogs, and people were able to come on and ask questions the whole time, right?
That's cool.
Pretty cool, fun thing to kind of engage and obviously show kind of how we're doing some of the training and stuff like that, right? So basically, we had one person come on and they start getting into the idea of like asking about eye contact and stuff. They're like, well, how would you teach eye contact and focus with a dog that is really tuned out, right? And I kind of explained, I was like, well, why do you need the dog to look at you in the first place, right? And the whole concept behind why they needed the dog to look at them was because in their mind, the dog looking at them, the dog physically doing something different meant that they were no longer concerned about the triggers going on around them, right? So I told him, I was like, well, if your dog listens to you 100% of the time, why do they need to look at you, right? Like, why do I need, if I could just tell my dog down and they lay down without looking at me, why is that a problem?
Yeah.
You know, if I could tell them come when they're not looking at me and they come to me, why do they need to be looking at me before I give that command?
Yeah, exactly.
The answer is they don't.
They don't at all.
You just have to have the dog understanding what's expected of them, and then you have to have a way of enforcing those things. And then from there, we want our dogs to get exposed to all the things going on around us, right? We want our dog to take in the sights and the smells and get that environmental socialization in these new places, right? So the conversation went further, right? And they start kind of getting into, well, they have a friend or a colleague or something like that that has a pity that when they pass other dogs, the pity stares at the other dogs the whole time, right? Okay, so the pity stares at other dogs the whole time. And they were trying to get the dog to look at them to get the dog to stop staring, right?
Yeah.
So again, what we're doing is we're creating a very short-term expectation that the dog should go from really amped up, really overstimulated, really anxious, to perfectly tuned in, perfectly focused, no longer concerned at all, right? Where all of these things, whether it's anxiety issues, whether it's fear issues, whether it's over-arousal issues, they are on a spectrum, right? So let me explain. So what I explained to this person on the podcast is, let's take a dog with dog reactivity, because that's what they were talking about with this pity, right?
Yep.
You got a couple different stages that your dog is going to go through, right? Stage number 1 is completely out of control, reactive mess, super emotionally charged behavior.
Yeah.
Right? Dog's freaking out at stuff, right? Next step is going to be first signs of being able to get the dog under control, right? Let's say we're using a down for this, right? So we put the dog into a down stay. They see that other trigger, and this thing, typically, they have a conditioned association with this thing over here of getting themselves really freaking fired up.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of times what we'll see when we get that first sign of control with them is we'll see them go from this state of mind of being really fired up to, okay, I need to focus in on this, and I'm doing it, but this is really hard for me, and I see that thing over there that I'm used to getting up and running towards, and I really would rather do it, but I'm holding this down right now. And sometimes in those cases, you'll see them, you know, bark a little bit or vocalize a little bit, or their hair might still be up, or they might be really stiff and overstimulated and stuff like that. And that's normal, right? And people people ask me all the time, well, what if I put my dog in a down and they're barking at the other dog while they're in the down? And I'm like, well, if they're holding it perfectly, leave them be, right? Because that's the first sign of being able to keep them under control around these types of things.
Yeah.
Right? So we put them in that trigger, right? Or we put them in that position. They're around that trigger. They're really stimulated. But let's say they do it successfully, right? Perfect. Then we do it again. We put them into that downstay, right? The trigger goes by, right? They hold that position really well. And this time they realize, okay, wait, I did this successfully. I didn't get any correction for it. It wasn't super stressful. I kept 50% of my brain focused on this task that I'm being asked to do right now, right? The dog went by, and they didn't mess with me. I didn't need to mess with them. Okay, I could start doing this. And you see that arousal level start coming down more and more each time that you put them in that situation, right? Because they're learning to focus on something while they're socializing with that trigger and seeing that trigger and getting exposed to that trigger, and we're reshifting their association with that trigger from being this really stimulating thing that they need to bark at and make go away or whatever it may be to, okay, nothing's actually happening. I'm keeping it under control, right? Then typically what we'll see is they move, and also I usually say to the question of what do I do if they're barking in the position? If they're that stimulated, where they're in that down and they're freaking out, barking the whole time, that's a pretty telltale sign that within 30 seconds or so, they're probably going to make a mistake and break that command, to which you can give your correction for that, right? Don't correct for the barking or whatever, because right now all we care about is that down in that position, right? So then we see this progress to dog is no longer super stimulated, but they're still a little concerned about that trigger. And again, you could replace dog reactivity with human reactivity. You could replace it with issues with the vacuum cleaner. You could replace it with storm anxiety. You can replace it with any number of triggers that your dog have. This spectrum still exists with all of those things, right?
Oh, yeah.
So then you see them move to the point where they're not necessarily super aroused, but they're still concerned. And what that typically will look like is the stage that this pity is at that they were asking me about, which is they told me the dog will walk 100% perfectly past other dogs, right? But they just stare at the other dog the whole time. To which, again, you get into, if you started at dog was freaking out, super aroused, super overstimulated, and you worked past that to dog kind of was under control, and you worked past that to dog is completely under control but still concerned and staring, you're working your way through the spectrum, and you just need a little bit more patience to get to the other step. You don't need to change what you're doing at all because you've already made all of this progress just by doing it in this way that you're doing right now.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
You don't need to add another expectation on it, which may create more stress around that trigger and cause them to revert back to their old reactive ways. Right?
True.
So then typically what we'll see dogs still concerned, but they're totally under control. Then you do that for a little while longer, maybe a month, maybe 3 weeks. I don't know, something like that, depending on how often you're passing other dogs. Then what you'll start to see is they do like a check-in thing, right? They'll kind of they pass another dog, like, I don't know how I feel about you. You still there? Yeah. You still there? Yeah. And it's this back and forth where it's not the hard stare, so concerned. It's, I'm a little concerned.
Yeah.
What are you doing over there? But I'm still attentive enough to see what's going on over here. What are you doing over there? I'm still attentive enough to go on over here. Right?
Yeah.
To which it turns into the dog just chill, relaxed, passing other dogs, right? But you have to let them go through the spectrum. You got to let them work through this organically. Because if you let them work through this organically and process those emotions and process all of this in and take it in and learn how to deal with it themselves without just basically fully submitting the dog in the presence of that trigger, you're going to find so much more success from it.
Yeah.
And your dog's not going to be so stressed out and so concerned because it's like, oh my God, I can't do anything else right now.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's my biggest problem with this right now, right? Same concept with the down, right? Vinny's a good example of this, right? So Vinny used to get really overstimulated when people come over. He still gets excited, right? But let's say if I put him in a bed stay, right? In the past, when I first got him, I would put him in a bed stay and he would be the dog that sat on that bed and barked his fucking head off while he was on the bed for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
He's just this is the most exciting thing on the face of the planet, right? And trust me, I tried all of the fucking correcting for the barking while he was on it, correcting for the state of mind while he's on it, this, that. It never got me anywhere, right? I started realizing I needed to just put him on it and just let him fucking deal with it, And waited. When he got overstimulated too much and broke command, I would correct him for it. I'd put him back on, but I needed to let him just kind of work through those emotions, right? And now if I put him in a bed stay while people come over, within a couple of minutes, he's fucking double downing on his own, right?
Yeah.
He puts his chin down. He's fucking relaxing because we let him work through all those emotions. We let him realize and decondition this association of people coming over being the most stimulating thing in the world.
Yeah.
And being on the bed was the most restrictive thing in the world to him. And he learned to deal with it and work through it on his own. But there was nothing I could have done that would have rushed that process.
Yeah.
Let me give you another example here. So this double down reminds me so much of another kind of old technique that a lot of e-collar trainers used to use that I think has kind of been replaced with the double down, because I don't see people do it as much as I used to. Still sometimes I'll see it, but not quite as much as I used to, which was basically the don't let the dog look at the other triggers, right? So basically, or it was sometimes it was look at the other trigger, or sometimes correct for the certain posture they have when they're looking at the other trigger, right? Yeah. So I would see this with the place command, right? They put dogs in place command, right? And they put them in the place command around something really exciting. I remember one video in particular, a trainer had a dog in a place command, and then he was playing tug with another dog off over here or something. Yeah. And every time the dog looked, and then it was like, here, I'll do it with the camera. They looked and then looked. As soon as they saw that, no, tap, right?
Yep.
And basically they were looking for the dog to just physically be in this chill position, even though they were around something that was so stimulating, like a dog playing tug, right? So it was this idea that the mentality needs to change. We need to correct away that aroused mentality, right?
Yeah.
Which again is just, it's unrealistic. Dogs are going to get excited about things. There are going to be things in the environment that are stimulating to them, and you're not going to make everything not stimulating. Just like how we talk about on the opposite spectrum, you're not going to make everything super fun and positive to dogs, right?
Yeah.
There are going to be things that are scary also, right?
Oh, yeah.
So again, moral of the story with all this kind of stuff, right? You're creating these false expectations, and to the point about correcting for looking or correcting for being too aroused in situations like that. Dude, when I first saw that technique this is when I first started training, first started doing e-collar trainer. I tried it all day long, right? We tried to do these things with dogs. And I remember one dog in particular I tried to do it with all the time was this dog, Frankie. Frankie, this pitty who was owned by this Courtney and Ryan out in whatever, really, really fantastic couple. And they had this super, super reactive pitty, right, that I would work with. And I would try all day long the freaking, like, put him in a bed stay in the lobby. And then when he started getting hyped up, correct him for it and try to correct away that, like, that state of mind to get him to chill out on that bed, even though he was holding that bed perfectly. Yeah. And 100% of the time, every single time with him, it just caused him to explode. Yeah. It just set him off and just caused him to just absolutely lose his fucking mind. Yeah. And then finally I ditched it. I said, this is not working. Yeah. You know, this is clearly not getting us anywhere right now. Yeah. He got better.
Immediately.
You know, like, because it's like one of those things where finally I set an expectation that was realistic for him. Mm-hmm. And the expectation was just, you're an easily overstimulated dog. Mm-hmm. All I need is impulse control right now. Yeah. That's it.
Exactly.
I don't need you to be in a calm state of mind necessarily. Yeah. I just need you to practice impulse control for me. That's it.
For sure.
You know? And when we set that expectation, the training got better. Mm-hmm. You know? So I just encourage everybody to recalibrate your expectations, especially with, oh my God, these puppies and stuff I see people doing it with where it's just not fucking necessary, right? If you have an impulsive puppy, your puppy needs training and impulse control. That's it. Yeah. They don't need to fucking double down.
No.
Right? They need to be able to be a puppy. And they need to just learn that there's a time and a place for them to go and interact and socialize.
Yeah.
That's it. So I don't know. I could talk in circles on this topic forever. You know, I'm slightly underprepared for the conversation, but yeah. I don't know. What do you think, Josh?
No, I think it all makes sense, especially when you're talking about how, I mean, different dogs would respond differently to something like this, like Vinny. Like,
yes,
you could probably do something like that with Waffles because he's literally like that lethargic feeling, like he just sits there and kind of just does his own thing and chills.
100%.
Where Vinny is, the like a freaking sports car at all times, just revving.
There's different types of dogs out there in this world, people.
Yeah,
there are different types of dogs.
Yeah, and
not all of them are the super calm, chill, do nothing all day dogs.
No. And I think the biggest risk, like you said, is just confusing your dog. Yeah. At the end of the day, like
confusing, and again, like I am not one that is going to be like you're gonna mess up your dog's training with e-collars. I'm not one that believes it's so easy to ruin a dog.
Yeah.
And frankly, let me also caveat: I don't necessarily know if you're going to forever ruin your dogs by doing double downs. You're probably not going to.
No.
Right. But I think the short to midterm potential screwing up of your dog's training that you can create by doing it is much higher than most other things. For example, just because I keep peeking at my phone because I keep getting comments on this post that I made. And somebody just commented on it and they said, excuse me. They said, okay, maybe not worse, but on par. So my original comment was, name a dumber dog training trend that did double down. I'll wait. And then a bunch of red flags. A little tweet. So it is a red flag. If you hire a trainer and they tell you we're going to be working on double down, I'm telling you,
get out.
You probably should get out. So anyways, this person said, okay, maybe not worse, but on par. Harnesses for everyone or you are cruel. Okay. So I would disagree with this. Right? I would disagree with this being on par because, again, when I look at something that could be a possibly negative thing, and then I had somebody else, the girl that I said that was gonna argue with it, obviously. And again, this is all in good fun, right? Like there's no actual hate going on between us. Yeah. But she said I could name so many dumber and more harmful trends, right? So The thing is, there are an infinite amount of dumb trends out there.
Yeah.
We know this. Right?
Yeah.
There are so many freaking dumb trends out
Yeah.
there, right? The issue is most of the dumb trends that you'll see, I actually would disagree that they have equal amount of potential harm behind them, right? The only ones that I could see being potentially more harmful are, and these are not even really trends necessarily. And these are also more owner-related things than they are trainer-related things.
Yeah.
Which would be the constant needing to like go up and stick your face in dogs and like things that are going to actually put people at a risk where they're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
You know, but that's again not really a trend, because in my dialogue with this girl, we were talking about, and I think one of the reasons why she took offense to it initially, she thought I was hating on owners that were doing it, which is not the case, right? This is not an owner problem, right? I have no hate against an owner that is doing what their dog trainer told them to do and trying to work on a double down, right?
Yeah.
What I do have an issue with is trainers who should know better that are preaching these things, right? Because they're essentially force feeding this stuff down people's throats, right? And the issue with most of the ones that would have more harmful kind of repercussions to them, they're not things that trainers would tell you to do. I truly cannot think of one off of the top of my head that would be more harmful, other than, and this is more of a state of mind than it is a trend, other than the community of vets and positive only trainers that are basically saying that e-collars are the bane of all existence, right?
Yeah.
And that you can't use these or else you'll ruin your dog, right? And the fear mongering that's happening towards like owners that's causing them to not seek out the professional help for their dogs. I would agree that is probably a more harmful trend. Than a double down.
Yeah.
But, again, I don't know if I would even call that a trend, because that's more of like a political belief system than it is like a trend in dog training. Like the double down is truly a trend.
Yeah,
it's truly something that, wasn't a thing like 2 years ago, right? And is now a thing again.
Yeah.
And also, let me triple caveat. Let me see if I can just cover all of my bases here right now, right?
Okay.
With another thing somebody said in the post is, you can teach the double down without the e-collar, right? I agree. And that's not what I'm talking about, right? So positive only trainers have been teaching a variation of this for like as long as time, right? They teach chin rests. It's a very common thing that's taught, is they teach the dog to put their chin on the ground and then they reward them for it, right? That's different because there's no, we can get into, that's a trick. Right? You're teaching a trick at that point. That's it.
Yeah.
We know that's not doing anything to change the state of mind of the dog.
Yeah.
All it's doing is teaching the dog a new trick. Right? Which is why they call it a chin rest. They don't call it a fucking double down. Right? The double down was originated literally by e-collar trainers. Right? And because I literally remember the first couple times I ever saw it. Right? It was literally originated by e-collar trainers. And it was originated and told as, we teach the dog to put their chin on the ground by correcting them for the arousal while they're in the down. And that's how we teach them how to do it. Right? So let's differentiate those things as well. I'm not talking about people that are teaching the chin rest without corrections, with rewards and positive reinforcement and stuff like that. I got no problem with that. You want to do that, go for it. I don't think it's going to help you a whole lot, right?
No.
But the help it may provide is just the fact that you're training your dog in an environment that they're distracted in, and you're keeping them engaged around a trigger. That would be the help that it's providing. I don't know, man.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't think it's worth it at the end still.
It ain't worth it. Not into the double down.
No.
So there we go. There's my 30-minute tangent on it.
Red flags.
Red flags. Don't fucking do a double down. All right, so
It's a nice mug. Nice Christmas mug.
you like this? This is like a New England Christmas scene. You see that?
Yep. Oh.
Nice. All right, guys. So last podcast we started reading Training Pointing Dogs by Paul Long. It was pretty good. I enjoyed it. So we're going to try to get into chapter number 2 here today. Discuss it a little bit. This is where they get into, I think, some of the specifics of training the hunting dogs and training the hunting dogs' behaviors. So last time we read the first chapter of it where they discuss some of the training tools, some of the old methods. Again, this book was written in like the 70s or something like that, so it's very old. Or was it no, this one was the 40s.
That was
I
the
think.
40s.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
one's the 70s.
Yeah,
73.
they're very old books. They're very dated with things, but they're very interesting, right?
Yeah.
And I caveated everything with, I don't know a whole lot about hunting dogs, right? This is not a world that we live in here in Cleveland, Ohio.
No.
Is the world of like deep hunting dogs.
Yeah,
like in
not
the
really.
back countries finding stuff.
The back country.
So this will be interesting to go over and just kind of discuss. Some
Yeah.
of it. Josh, you got any last points on anything? Do you want? Did we wrap up the double down enough? Do you feel like?
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
I think a lot more information than I thought we were really going to get into. So, I don't know. I don't think anyone can disagree with you after this, actually. So,
I think people still can. I would think
I'm
they
sure
still
they.
can.
I'm sure they will.
All right, so we're going to get into chapter 2 here. This is preschool. Again, Training Pointing Dogs by Paul Long. All right, how soon should I start training my puppy? As soon as you get him. A puppy 7 or 8 weeks old is already starting to learn. And the more you work with him in the right way, the more he will become your dog. Even if he will be a kennel dog most of his life, try to bring him into the house or find another way to give him some time with people every day. It is puppies that spend their formative months in a kennel without human companionship that, no matter how well cared for otherwise, may turn out queer, manchy, afraid to come through the kennel door, unsafe with children, etc. Of course, you should not use harsh discipline on a baby dog, any more than you would a human baby. Anyone who would should not be allowed to have either. A puppy's attention span is short, but a lot can be taught to very young puppies in brief training sessions, with plenty of romp and play in between. And the puppy is not only learning, he is learning to learn and to enjoy working with you. We talk about that a lot with puppies, is that our initial goal with them is not only to obviously set the boundaries and socialize them and stuff like that, but we're teaching them how to learn, and we're teaching them a good work ethic, right? Mm-hmm. That's why a lot of young dogs from like 8 weeks to 14 weeks, 8 weeks to 16 weeks, stuff like that, we're doing primarily reward-based stuff with them. Mm-hmm. I want them to want to engage with me. I want them to want to figure out the things that I'm teaching them.
Yeah. The Monks and Newskeet went over that really well.
Yes. He can be taught to come by saying come or here, leaning down to the puppy's level, clapping your hands, and then holding them wide in invitation. When he obeys, reward him with praise and affection, even a tad bit at first. There will come a time after you know he understands the command when he will not obey because something else interests him more, or he will come close and then jump away when you reach for him. It is your introduction to his escape hatch. When this happens, put a 6-foot cord on him. Call him again. If he balks or shies away, pick up the cord. Hit him mildly with a rolled-up newspaper and gently pull him to you. Praise him lavishly when he comes without admonishment. Failure to come, when called, is a puppy's first test of whether obedience is really necessary. Nip his disobedience in the bud. A little mild chastisement now will save him harsher discipline later on. I mean, he's correcting the dog.
Yeah.
We don't use newspapers anymore, guys. We use more effective methods than that. But keep a leash on your dog. That's a big point with this here. The more you teach them to get away with running off when you don't call, or when you call them, obviously the less obedient they're going to be later on. They're going to learn that they can get away with doing that, which literally people that have their puppies off leash all the time, it ruins your chances of having off leash reliability later on. Because there's so many opportunities that things become a chase game and you can't communicate with them or control them the way you need to. A little puppy also quickly learns what no means if you say that disapprovingly as you stop him from doing whatever it is that he is doing wrong. Use only your voice the first few times you correct him, but if you persist, use the rolled-up newspaper. Puppies are quick to get the message. Approval means a lot to a puppy. When he does right, make a lot of him. When he does wrong, let your voice show your disapproval. If your voice is not enough, use the rolled-up newspaper. It reprimands without really hurting. Of course, as a disciplinary measures later on, how much you should use it depends on the temperament and reactions of your dog. Observe and use common sense. So again, the rolled-up newspaper, if we were to break it down, it's very, very similar to the bonker, which we talk about all the time, right? Bonker is a rolled-up towel that you use as a projectile at the dog to scare them away from doing behaviors. Things like this are not intended to create harm, right? You know, everybody hates, again, we're not using rolled-up newspapers. We don't want the dog shying away from us and, thinking we're going to hit them with things and stuff. But it's not actually hurting them. The idea is that it's startling them out of things.
Yep.
Using these methods, you will be amazed at how much can be taught a very young puppy. But don't try to make a paragon out of virtue of your puppy all at once. When he is doing well on one command, move on to the next one, and so on. Start any lesson with a brief review of what the puppy has already learned. Keep the sessions short and intersperse plenty of play and just fooling around. This is not a recipe for winning puppy stakes and field trials. If you should enter your puppy, the judges may think he is lacking in ambition because he is paying too much attention to you, but it is a recipe for getting started with a little puppy that you will want to hunt to the gun. And it will develop a dog ripe for the finishing training required to produce a polished gun dog, or, if he has the style, zest for hunting and bird handling talents needed. A winner of field trial stakes for adult dogs. One last word. If your puppy fails to obey, for example, the command of no, don't keep saying no, 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 and go whack, whack, whack with the newspaper. One firm no and one smart whack. Adjusting in force to the dog's age and temperament will do you and him much more good. So have clarity behind your correction. Make sure, again, I'm putting all this into layman's terms here. What he's basically saying is if you're going to correct the dog one time and be done with it, right?
Yeah.
Don't try to say no a bunch of times to avoid giving the correction. Don't try to give a bunch of teeny weeny little corrections. Let's equate this to an e-collar. A bunch of really low level ones that are going to nag the dog.
Yeah.
Do away with the behavior if you're trying to correct it.
Yep.
Make it count. Be consistent about it.
No whack, whack, whack.
No. Whack, whack, whack. How do I train my puppy to the leash? Put a small collar on the puppy with a 10 or 12-foot leash or training cord attached. Turn him loose in a safe field or yard, letting go of the leash. After the puppy has run free for about 20 minutes, pick up the leash and follow him wherever he wants to go, within reason. When you wish to change direction, the puppy will probably fight the leash or balk. Slacken the leash, pet the dog, and encourage him to move. Follow the puppy again. Several such lessons, and he will go with the leash willingly. Once the puppy is leash broken, tie him to some object and walk off 30 to 50 feet. The pup will probably object to being tied and fight the leash. Don't let him injure himself. Walk to the dog, pet him, and back off a few feet, repeating as necessary. Within a few minutes, your puppy will be not only leash broken, but accustomed to being tied or to being kennel chained when the time comes for serious training. 5 lessons easily accomplish these 2 steps toward further training, and the puppy will have enjoyed every minute he was getting your undivided attention and affection. So again, back tying. Exactly what we're doing with Waffles right now. He's tied back to a chair here, and we're teaching him to be okay with existing in a spot and understanding that leash is a boundary that he has to heed to. Is sight pointing good for a very young puppy? There's no great harm if no scent is involved. It makes you happy, and it helps to develop the pup's pointing instinct. But don't cast out a bird with your fish pole. Cast out some small object. It will do just as well for a very young puppy because little puppies point from sight, not scent. Once a puppy begins to point from scent, he should not be allowed to sight point. If you let him, you are encouraging the dog not to stop on scent, but to move in until he could see the game. Once he sees it, he will, at the slightest movement of the quarry, jump in to catch it. No dog that keeps moving after scent until he could see the bird will hold birds on the ground for the handler to flush. This is one of the greatest faults amateurs create in their dogs, and it is hell to correct later on. People rave about their puppies that are pointing at 3 or 4 months of age. It's nice, but why the praise? It is instinct, nothing that the owner did. Let's see the puppy pointing at 18 months of age with all his character as the handler walks in to flush. Then the handler and the dog merit praise. My puppy runs off when I want to pick him up. This is good in one way because it indicates the puppy that loves to run and hunt, and he runs away because he doesn't want to stop. But it is an aggravating trait and should not be tolerated. Try to avoid building this fault into your puppy. Don't let him come to think that every time he is called, the fun is over. Call him in several times during his run, pet and praise him, and then give him his freedom again. If necessary, run him with a 10-foot cord dragging from his collar. Loosen the collar one hole so that the pup can slip it if he gets snagged out of your sight. The chance of snagging is slight if you use a 3/8" nylon cord burned or taped at the ends. But why take chances? When you return to the car and the puppy runs around the car or by you, step on the rope and catch him. Pet him and put him in the car. The electronic trainer will cure this fault very quickly, but I hesitate to recommend it to an inexperienced owner with a young puppy. You will have to be the judge of whether this method is right for you and your puppy. Put the electronic collar on the dog before you set him loose, but leave the transmitter in the car so that you can't be tempted to use it for other reasons. Let the puppy have a good run. When you return to the car to pick up the transmitter and call the dog in, if he refuses to come or parts ways and dashes off again, shock and call him again. The fun will go out of him immediately. He will either come running to you or bolt off or stand in his tracks like a sullen bull calf. If he comes running to you, your troubles are over, and you may never have to use your trainer again for this purpose. If he bolts off, do not shock again. Let the unpleasant sensation sink in, and he will soon return voluntarily to circle the car. When he does, call him again. If he refuses or starts off again, shock a second time. Now command him to you, but do not use an angry, high-pitched voice that will frighten the dog. Pet him and put him away. One thing on all of this. So with e-collar training, typically speaking, it is not uncommon that we will see those 3 responses out of dogs when we first go to teach the recall. Now, we try to do as much prep work as we can to avoid that. We try to teach it a little more before we go to actually implement it. Like in this case, they're simply using it as this is a correction for not responding to a command. But in modern training, we're going to be teaching these commands far more extensively before we go to be put in that position. That being said, there are still some dogs when they truly have freedom, when you give that correction, they're like, nah, screw this. And they try to take off, right? In those cases, yes, I've found that repeatedly correcting just makes the situation worse, right? They typically try to just take off. So I usually wait until they settle somewhere, you know, and then I'll re-give my information. But this is also why, if we're going to be in a uncontained area, we use a long line for something like this, right? That way we could avoid it. We could let them try to run off, realize they can't get away. Then once they settle, we would repeat that correction and get the dog to come back to us.
And it's cool that he's using like a cord or whatever, but he was still basically using kind of a long line to work with, but he was a little less refined to what you do.
And again, that just gets into modern e-collar training. Like there's more methods to teach the dog what to expect when they feel that sensation.
There's a lot more conditioning before you get to this point.
If your puppy freezes in his tracks at the first shock, walk out, leash him, and pet him, and lead him to the car. You've accomplished your primary purpose, catching the dog. Be satisfied with that for the time being. On your next workout, be prepared to repeat the same procedure. You may not have to use your shocker in this workout, but if you do, I'm sure that the puppy will be only too happy to come to your car when called thereafter. So basically saying, if the dog gets corrected and then freezes and doesn't know what to do, instead of correcting again, you have to show the dog what to do. Because in this case, the primary objective is teaching the dog that not coming results in a correction, right? Then we show you what to do after that. All right. Can I teach my puppy to quarter? Quartering or crisscrossing in front of you is easily taught to some dogs. In others, it's hard to do. Most quartering dogs come from regions like Pennsylvania, New England, or Michigan, where cover is heavy and game is, or at least used to be, relatively plentiful. In the South, Southwest, and Western Canada, dogs have been developed to run the edges and cast out to likely objectives. Differences in topography and agricultural methods dictate the needs of gunners in a particular region, and dogs of the region have been bred to meet these needs. So if your puppy comes from a line of dogs that has been bred for the wide open spaces, he may not adapt readily to the quartering you would like for some small fields and heavy cover. However, in many of today's dogs, there is an intermixture of strains, and the way to find out if your dog will take to quartering is by trying. When you cast your dog off in the field and he, for example, goes to the right, you veer to the left and signal to your dog by voice, whistle, or arm motion. Dogs are pretty clever at catching on to hand signals. When the dog veers to the left after your signal, you catch his attention by signaling again and veer to the right, continuing this procedure throughout the workout. Most dogs learn this quickly. You may feel, however, that your dog is running too far out. If you are perspective, it is not hard to tell whether your dog means to disobey you, or it is just not in his nature to run close. Some dogs have the desire to go great distances, yet keep in touch with the handler. A dog that runs wide but looks towards you to check your whereabouts before moving on to good-looking cover is usually handling. The dog that is refusing to handle will run wide, but will go up and down the same hedgerow many times or go off into swamps and woods on his own, checking on you just enough so that he will not lose contact completely. Coming from the rear, following your foot or horse tracks is not obeying. If your dog handles but runs too wide to suit your taste, and you especially dislike this, think about trading him off and getting the kind of dog you want. It will be an uphill fight to make him into a close dog, and neither he nor you may be happy if you succeed. So basically the idea of quartering, I believe, is the dog in front of you flushing anything out of the grass by weaving back and forth.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's the general
Yeah,
idea
I think
of it.
so.
And obviously the idea here is to flush those birds out. When they say flush, they're trying to flush anything in the ground cover out so you can shoot it. Mm-hmm. How do I teach my dog to work on a check cord? Don't, as I've seen many beginners do, let the dog strain continuously at the end of the cord. As he nears the end of the training rope, give a short staccato command, hup, hike, or even here, said more tersely than when calling the dog in, will do. Give a light jerk on the cord as you give the command, and the dog will change direction. Repeat as needed, and the dog will learn to range within the limits of the cord. This command will continue to serve you in the field long after check cord days are over. So long line work. Yes, the point of the long line is not to have the dog 20 feet out on a leash, 30 feet out on a leash pulling you, right? The point of the long line is to simulate off-leash work, right? So if the dog is digging into that leash the whole time, you're not achieving what you need, which is the dog having a sensation of not being on the leash. So you want to make sure that you're discouraging that if you see it however you need to, right? Even when we're working with dogs on long lines, our goal is for the dog to never actually hit the end of that leash and feel the pressure, because we want them to start thinking over time that there's no leash on in the first place. Which is why a lot of times we just have them drag the line. Do I need a whistle? Yes. Even if your dog will be a close worker, he needs to learn whistle signals. There will be times when, because of a strong wind, heavy cover, or dips in the terrain, he cannot hear you, especially if you hunt with a bell, and a whistle will penetrate where your voice will not. You should have 3 different signals for 3 different commands. One, perhaps a couple of short toots to send him on. Another, perhaps one long blast to catch his attention and turn him. And the third, perhaps repeated long blasts to bring him in. You could devise your own personal whistle signals if you want to, but most dogs will recognize your whistle voice even when you're using the same make of whistle and same whistle code as a fellow handler. Teaching your dog whistle signals is the easiest of all your training assignments. Give him the go-ahead signal when you turn him loose, and combine the other signals with voice commands the first few times. Your dog will quickly catch on. A lot of people now, instead of using a whistle, they'll use the tone function on the e-collar for stuff like this.
Oh, I never thought
Same
of that.
concept.
Yeah.
Same concept. How do I get my puppy birdie and pointing? A puppy is never too young to be taken into the fields and woods, to build his enjoyment in going with you in search of game and awakening his urge to find it. In little puppies, these runs should be brief, only a few minutes at a time. They tire quickly, and you should avoid tiring them until the fun is gone and they lose interest. As the puppy grows older and stronger, the workouts can be lengthened. If in the limited time available, you can get your puppy into an area with plentiful wild birds, his birdiness and pointing instinct will develop naturally. Wild birds are great for puppies. They encourage pointing because the puppy soon learns that he cannot get too close to them, and they are also excellent because he cannot catch them. For lack of wild birds, strong flying quail can be used, but you should get your puppy accustomed to working on a 30-foot check cord. You will have him work him on the check cord to prevent his catching quails after their short flights. There is a quicker way to get your puppy birdie and pointing, which is very effective. As with quail, this method requires that the puppy be previously trained to range within the limits of the check cord. Get 3 good pigeons, some kite string, 3 plastic soft drink bottles, and pigeon harnesses for the birds. Now cut 3 pieces of kite string, 40 to 50 feet long. Tie one end of each string to a harnessed pigeon and the other end to a soft drink bottle. In lieu of the pigeon harness, you could shackle the bird's legs with a piece of string 4 to 5 inches long with a slip knot at either end. Pull the slip knot snug on each of the pigeon's lower legs and attach your long kite string to the middle of the shackle. However, I urge the harness as less tiring to the birds. Put the pigeon down asleep in the birdie area with its soft drink bottle close by. Set out the other pigeons about 150 feet apart in the same way. If one of the pigeons wakes up prematurely, the bottle will bring it down easily and gracefully at the end of its string. Now bring on your dog with the training cord attached to his regular collar or slip collar. Keep hold of the rope and work your dog into the wind for good scenting conditions towards one of the pigeons. If the dog fails to scent the bird or shows no sign of pointing, don't despair. With your foot, or better yet, have a helper do it, nudge the bird to take flight. But be careful that your dog does not get so close to the bird that its flapping wings will hit him in the face and frighten him. Take your dog in the general direction of the pigeon's flight, again, bringing your dog up to the bird facing the wind. This time the bird will be awake, probably standing, and the chances are that your dog will rush forward to catch it. Pull up on the training cord to prevent this, and the dog will freeze into point momentarily. Put the pigeon to flight again, and then move on to the other pigeons, repeating the procedure for each. Then start around again, making each pigeon fly twice, this time also. Twice around the field, and 2 flights for each bird each round is enough for any dog. That's pretty interesting. I didn't realize that they make like harnesses for birds like that. I mean, it makes sense. Like, how else would you teach your dog to point on these things unless you have like actual animals that you could train it with, you know, in a controlled way? It goes without saying that you shouldn't be stupid enough to leave the check cord so loose that your dog can catch a pigeon. When your dog points, stroke his belly. If this is the first time your dog has had this treatment, he may lie down or turn his head. Don't be concerned. Don't try to make the dog stand up. A little experience will accustom him to your hands on his body. Go ahead and flush or have a helper flush the pigeon. If you are lucky enough to be working with homing pigeons and have a helper on the final find with each bird, ask your helper to unshackle the pigeon and let it fly home. Let the puppy chase. It will whet his enthusiasm. If you do have homers and want to save the birds for another workout on another day, put your dog away while you pick up the pigeons and their gear. Then let the puppy scamper the field, scenting where the pigeons were. Pigeons tire quickly. If more than 1 or 2 dogs are to be trained in one session, there should be replacements for the birds. Don't shoot over your dog in this type of workout. There's time for that later on. Also, don't be concerned in this stage of training when birds, if your puppies point, are only fleeting. What you're doing is awaking your dog's instincts. Once it is clear that the dog is beginning to point, or even just to scent the pigeons with their strong desire to hunt, you have accomplished your purpose. One such workout may be all you need to do this. If more than one session with pigeons on a string is necessary, work your dog elsewhere in between to discourage formation of the habit or of puttering in search of heavy scent. Once your dog has become birdie, don't go back to this lesson. Work him on wild birds whenever you can. But however you have developed your dog's birdiness, don't try to make him staunch or steady at this stage. Postpone training for staunchness and steadiness until after you have him thoroughly yard trained. You will never regret it. How can I... Good? All right. How can I get my dog to work close on birds? This is something that can be taught to a puppy as soon as he learns to love birds, and is valuable training for a bird dog of any age. Take your dog to an area where you know there's a bird, and you have a good location on it, either because you set it out or saw it come down. As you near the bird, order close and begin to whistle in continuing chirps, something like a hen-quail chirping. Do it with your lips, or make a similar, continuing distinctive noise on your training whistle. Repeat the command close as needed, and keep up the chirping whistle until the dog finds the bird. Only a few such experiences, and your dog will know the meaning of the command close, and that continuing distinctive whistle. Do this whenever you are working on a bird in training, and you will have a dog that will add to your hunting pleasure later on. At the command close, he will thoroughly work out a birdie area, even though no bird may be found. The command will also help you when you have shot down the bird and are having trouble finding it. The command has another use when your puppy has learned to love to hunt, is temporarily overcome by his desire of companionship with another dog. If he has learned what the close signal means, you could use it to remind him of what he is missing. Once he has broken away from the other dog, you could send him on, and usually he will forget all about the trailing. But be careful about using the signal this way on a puppy too many times without bird finds in between, or you may find yourself in a boat with the boy who cried wolf when there was none. So the idea here is they're conditioning in a cue to predict the bird, right? And that's no different than a reward marker that we use, right? We use it in a way where it has a conditioned response of something fun or exciting or rewarding, right? In the dog's case, they get their reward out of chasing the birds, right? That is the reinforcement. And they're essentially creating a cue that has a conditioned association with that. So you don't want to repeatedly use it without it, because then you decondition that word and the dog stops responding to it over time.
Yeah.
So, interesting chapter 2. Learning about... all the freaking dogs that are learning the hunting things.
It's pretty crazy.
Hunting world, you know? Mm-hmm. So, exciting times.
It's so interesting how, you know, it's such a different thing to, you know, just basic, like, obedience stuff that we do. But it's so similar. Yeah. You know?
I mean, listen, I mean, training is training, right?
Yeah.
Like teaching the dog how to learn and the dog understanding, you know, different things that we're requiring of them. You could teach a dog literally anything.
Yeah.
You know, it's wild when you look at some of the tricks and commands and stuff people will teach dogs. It's just, how does this stuff benefit you? You know, like why, you know, like in our life and in our training company and stuff, we focus on just pet dog real world obedience, right? So down stays, come commands, bed stays, stuff like that. We spend days and days and days and months and months and months working those commands, right? For people like this that live in places where they just go hunting with their dogs, all that time that we spend on those things, they spend that time on this type of stuff.
Yeah.
You know? And that's why you'll get some dogs that are so proficient with these tasks, is because that's their emphasis. That's what they need that dog to be able to do.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, it's all the same, though. You're right. I mean, it's just a different thing you're teaching as opposed to it.
Yeah.
So it is pretty cool. I enjoy it. So we'll keep plugging away with this book next time. It's going to be a pretty easy read. I think we're almost halfway through already.
Yeah.
So, cool. So biggest thing here today, fucking double down.
Yeah.
Keep pondering it. I keep encouraging you to think about it.
Yeah.
Maybe throw it away. Maybe stop using it for a little bit and see what happens.
Yeah.
See if there's a better way. See if there's a more efficient way.
Question it.
Question it. Yes, I thought you said question, like you were going to ask me a question.
Question it.
Yes, question it. So, hell yeah. So we're going to wrap this up.
Cool.
Yeah. Hope you guys liked it.
We got vacations and
I know. I feel myself starting to get in that like holiday vacation mindset where my brain's not like turning as good as it should be with some of this stuff.
Yeah.
But you know, it is what it is. So we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Yeah.
Josh, you got anything else to wrap up?
No.
That's it?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think the double down's silly, but I guess I understand why people think it would be a good thing. But at the end of the day, I think it just makes it, like you said, not a long-term side effect, but it really inhibits your dog getting your downs well while you're training, and just is going to make your training process longer in the end, I think.
Yeah, I don't think it's accomplishing what people think it's accomplishing.
No, exactly.
I think that's my biggest issue with it. You know?
Yeah.
So.
And then, other than that, I think that was good. You can find me at Josh Debate Productions on Instagram. The website's still down. Sorry.
I better finish it.
I know.
You can find me at David_the_Dog_Trainer or at Miracle Canine Training. As always, we're looking for guests for the podcast. If you want to come on, shoot us a message. Shoot me an email at david@miraclecaninetraining.com or just send us a DM. We'd be happy to talk with you about getting you on. Could be anybody. In addition to that, we are wrapping up at the facility a big project we've been working on the last month or so. So stay tuned for more details on that. Should be pretty exciting. Yeah. We're getting ready for the new year here. Keep setting your goals. Listen to our last podcast we talked about on setting and achieving goals.
Achieving them, yep.
And see you guys next time.
All right, see you.